So, part two, I've decided to do two parts today, day 28. So I just think I just left you with, yeah, it's my birthday tomorrow. So, yeah, I'm going to do the complete opposite. I'm going to have a water fast tomorrow. And I may do 3 days. I think it might help to reintroduce, any effects of the kind of foods that I've put into my system in the last 3 days. I want to try and combat that. Yeah, having got this kind of interesting studies from certain videos that I watched, it's kind of interesting because it's an intuitive thing for me. A lot of the stuff that I've done, um, and yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, a lot of us operate like that. Where you get a confirmation on your thoughts or your feelings, or literally your gut feeling sometimes is and it's often why we will buy into something, or especially if it's on the side of a good thing. So yeah, it's almost as though, when you're as you're getting older, it's something that you might have more faith in. That you're onto something. So, and it's good to get the confirmation, isn't it? Definitely for me. It's I often, every now and again, still go down certain rabbit holes, or paths, if you like, just to kind of prove to myself that I was right. And often or not, now these days it's more, well, more often than not, it's a question of, I don't need to go down there anymore. I don't need to waste my time and energy. Because I get into this kind of, this feels right. And I'm confident in that. There's no confusion and there's no doubt. So, this is another major reason as to why I'm taking on this fast, and this intermittent fasting. Which may or may not become part of my life. There's times now when I feel so good on this one vegan meal that I feel like jumping up for joy. And actually fully confident, that I am going to be vegan, and this is all I need. And the couple of moments where I have had uh, those kinds of, or have those memories of those kind of things that I might do, where I'm 90% vegan. Yeah, there's a whole heap of foods to make good recipes from, and things that make me feel really uh, bright and clear, and so on. So obviously, there's a hell of a lot of things living in our stomach that want us to continue with the kind of foods, right, that are not necessarily good for us. And that doesn't mean that they're really bad in the first place. Because we have to look at it like from the point of view of, like, today, modern farming. You're going to be eating meat and potentially wheat and vegetables and stuff like that are sprayed with Roundup and pesticides and fungicides, and meat that's filled up with antibiotics. And it might be free range, this, that, and the other, but you are eating that stuff because also they are eating that from the feed that they eat, which could be corn, inorganic corn, and soybean, and so on. And what's done to those things, and then it goes all across the board in relation to fish farming, shrimp farming. There's a whole heap of ways of getting continuing to eat these bacterias, and then develop these these desires and addictions to these types of foods. that would have otherwise in their natural environment wouldn't be near as harmful, you know. So this is another good reason why I'm potentially coming away from modern farming, mass production of meat, you know, and staying away from that kind of supermarket that would provide and you know, sell those products, you know. So you know, this is definitely you know, I've even watched myself back a couple of times on camera, and I can clearly see, right, that there's a battle going on within me in relation to that. You may yourself observe this, you know. This is why I'm doing this. But I'm trying to be honest. I want to be completely 100% honest with you, you know. You know, even to the point where, you know, after the Sunday that I had, you know, then going up the to Loch Crew that morning, the gong morning with Lisa, you know, I was talking to her about it, you know, and I was being honest with her, but I was reminding myself, you know, of like how easy, you know, what was actually going on in my mind in relation to what I was going to say to you that later that day, and see could I maybe almost forget that it happened, and therefore lie about, you know, that it did happen, or you know, so really this is what I'm doing this from. I want to be honest about the process, and you know, of course I would like to look back, and not for ego point of view, but for the sake of the practice in itself of achieving an impeccable 60 days. But I'm not going to kill myself for you know, not being impeccable, you know. You know, and by being impeccable for the next 60 days, I would not have been impeccable for the 88 days, and that might what spurs me on to have 60 days of impeccability, because you know it will not be perfect, the 88 days, and then maybe the next time I do 88 days next year I might have a little bit more, you know, and I might benefit more by more research in relation to what that one meal a day will be, and or I might get to this. I might get to the stage where, you know, I have very little in it, just a small compound, you know, or even attempt the 40 days and 40 nights, or 88, maybe double that, you know, to see if that could be done. I can't see myself doing that, you know, but I'm just saying, you know, it's you know, the place I'm at now is in really dealing with the diet, you know, and where this whole thing has started for me in relation to the way that I was brought up, in the culture I was brought up in, and the food that was available to us at that time, and then, you know, trying to marry that into you know, today, why I put such emphasis on you know, seasonal food, you know, is for so many different reasons, right, that I might not have been able to mention them all, but some of the obvious things that I have already previously mentioned, you know, the relevance of that is something that all of us need to look at, you know, because we have had, we'll say, 100,000 years, 200,000 years of a particular way of living, you know, and the various crossovers in where they're able to tell what caveman was eating, you know, and when we first started farming, and you know, and if these things are truly correct, you know, it shouldn't really matter so much, like in other than that, if it confirms and helps with the way that we're going to live our lives in the future, you know, whether, you know, the supermarket business is a good force in the world, and the same as, is religion a good force in the world? Is it, you know, are these things you know, helpful to us, you know, in around like the way we used to live our lives before that first supermarket in 1946, apparently, you know, and how we lived our lives prior, you know, to that, and why it's good to pull back and then go forward again, you know. In other words, why it's good to fast at this time of year, because we, you know, in our DNA and within our memory and our cellular memory, and our, you know, what our ancestors done, you know, to mimic that in some way is actually, there's all sorts of science behind it, you know, in relation to how we get to running on 9 cylinders again, you know, assuming, right, that you agree that just for the sake of it, right? That this body runs on 9 cylinders, right? Because it's pretty obvious, right, that some of us are not even running on one, and we're just ill. And so some of the amazing things that have taken place in relation to correct diet has it's stopped people from having to get that knee replacement, where cartilage has grown back, tumors have disappeared, people's hair has come back to its natural color, it's endless, where MS, ME, people are moving like they never have before, and clarity of mind, consciousness, just living and so on has begun for some people, dementia, senility, all these things are a product of living in a particular way which is not in balance with nature, and everything being nature, us included. There is basic law, and not man-made law, but basic universal law, in this jungle that we live in, So we need to understand this, and so yeah, this is the continuation of that. There's not a need for me to berate myself or give myself a hard time in relation to the fall. This is a process, and obviously I'm looking for the example of now the lectin that I've discovered is in beans, and the risk of not cooking them properly, etc., and preparing them or whatever, they've been making me quite cloudy, and I've been having moments of bliss. Now I want to put it to the test by eliminating them altogether and see how I feel over the next 2 weeks, and replacing them with chia seeds, because chia seeds is something I bought a bit of bulk, because that's what I thought I was going to do in opposition to beans. It was what my gut feeling was saying, and then I kind of just continued with the beans in case I needed that kind of source of fiber and that kind of feeling of I need energy, But now I've since found out that chia seeds is from South America. They're the thing that this tribe is running 100-mile marathons and amazing all these athletes around the planet as to what their secret was, and it was chia seeds. So and they're full of oils and stuff like that. So yes, Stephen Gundry, talks about this. He says a lot of foods really is just an excuse to get oil into your mouth. So the Italians, coincidentally, I spent 5 months in Italy, and I never felt better. They don't spray Roundup on their wheat, so therefore their bread is really just a soaker, in relation to getting that oil down, because the benefits from really good olive oil. Half the stuff on the market is it's not what it says on the package. You really need to research this, and to stay out of the supermarket altogether would be a good thing, because they hardly have anything decent in there. It's all mass produced. It's all mixed and watered down and radiated and so on. So, and it's not to say you can't get some good stuff there, but even the organic laws have there's loads of trickery, there's loads of ways around these things, so you need to be careful. But, this is the thing about some of the things that are going on in some of the other countries like the Mediterranean. They haven't messed up their food like they have in America. And America has spilled over into Britain and Ireland in some way, more so than the other way around, like where you'd expect, because we're in Europe, things should have spilled over from France and Spain and Italy and so on. And but there's a lot of stuff that's banned in European countries that is totally abusive and runs riot in the food chains of America. So so this is why it's necessary to quote people who are most of the studies and research are done there. There are some things that haven't necessarily spilled over here, but you have to work these things out for yourself. So anyway, time is up again almost, but yeah, it's very interesting, because this can create all sorts of debate, I suppose. Anyway, blessed be, part 2 tomorrow. This is part 2 today.